Hello there, hi. Thanks a million for joining us today. Let me introduce myself and Abby Moran to you. We're going to be speaking to you today about Ad Net Zero in Ireland. Abby Moran is the CEO of Wunderman Thompson, and she's been one of the founders of Ad Net Zero in our group here in Ireland. I'm Elizabeth Sheehan. I'm chair of the Ad Net Zero Ireland Council, and I'm a sustainability marketing consultant. My background's always been with brands. And as an advertiser, I really believe in the role of brands and advertising in taking responsibility for societal change. And really, I believe that we should, as an industry, be looking to ourselves to see how we can address the climate crisis by reducing our emissions. So that's how I got involved with Ad Net Zero. But don't just listen to me, because we have some really interesting research from some of our colleagues across the industry here in Ireland that will tell us how they feel about climate change and our role in addressing sustainability. We've seen that 92% of us are worried about the negative impacts of our industry on the environment. And a really high percentage, 91 also, agree that our industry has a really important role in addressing climate change. Most importantly, because of that magic thing that we have, which is our ability to communicate and connect with Irish consumers. Ireland is a great storytelling nation, and the role of the advertising and marketing and communications industry is really important in really looking to see how we can drive positive societal change and help people adapt to taking responsible, sustainable measures in their day-to-day lives. 94% of our people are asking us to invest, to actually put some money where our mouths are and invest in sustainability practices. And what's really interesting in this is that 87% of us want some clarity because we're not clear really on what we can do to address climate change within our industry. What are the steps that can be taken? And then we see the gap between the will and the way. So despite having a really passionate desire to be part of change and be part of taking responsibility for doing the right thing for the addressing climate change, only 40% of our industry have got started their own carbon calculations, and less than 20% have got a really robust sustainability strategy. So with that data in mind, we have been looking around and we have come across Ad Net Zero. We've come across Ad Net Zero by working across the UK and Ireland, and we've seen that it's really, really a great initiative. So that's why we've brought it into Ireland. So this is why IAPI have spearheaded bringing the Ad Net Zero initiative to Ireland. It's led by Charlie Stoney, the CEO of IAPI, who has led the project so far. But Abby Moran and Fiona Field from OMD have been two really clear advocates of bringing Ad Net Zero through IAPI and to set it up as an independent initiative in Ireland. We launched this in June this year, and we have a target of over 100 members in year one. We're already more than halfway there. But the urgent, important call that we're making today is to all Irish organisations involved in advertising, communications and marketing to join Ad Net Zero, to join this collective critical movement and to drive down the emissions we produce from our communications activities. You can see here the 5-step Ad Net Zero action plan. It's exactly what we've been looking for, some clear, actionable guidelines on how to reduce our emissions from all aspects of the different parts of the advertising and communication process. From action 1, about getting our own house in order, looking at how we measure our own carbon emissions from our day-to-day activities, be that travel, be that waste, be that the energy we use in our offices with our teams, etc. The middle 3 actions are all around curbing emissions from the advertising process, so actually from creating advertising and creative. Action 2 is about curbing emissions from advertising production. Action 3 is about curbing emissions from the media planning and buying. Action 4 is about the broader aspect of curbing emissions from the events that we hold, but also about awarding and really crediting those who take on highly sustainable activities. For each of these actions, there is a carbon calculator. And AdNet Zero provides a carbon calculator that we can all use as supporters, tap into and measure our emissions. Action 1 is already in place, and many people have already started measuring their own carbon emissions, which is wonderful to see. Action 2 is linked to Ad Green, and so it gives guidelines and measurements of how to produce creative video content and to measure our emissions from that very production. Action 3 is around measuring the emissions from our media planning and buying. And this is a really important aspect of what we're developing. We're creating a media calculator in the pre-competitive space so that agencies and clients alike can all understand what the effect is from the different choices we make in our media plans. This is in development, and it's really critical that our members and our supporters join and collaborate to help make sure that works for everybody involved, from media owners to media agencies to creative agencies through to clients. And then Action 4 is all around understanding our emissions from events that we hold, and there's media calculations tools also for that we can tap into as members of AdNet Zero. Action 5 is a really broad piece, which is where we look at how we influence and change behaviour through the creative that we use, through the copy that we put out, through the messages that we convey. And that's a really collaborative piece, working with various different organisations, including Purpose Disruptors, Change the Brief, client agencies who have their own plans, the WFA with the guidelines. So again, that provides us with a real opportunity to explain and understand how we can create copy that is really influencing positive behavioural change, but also that we can really avoid greenwashing and putting out ineffective messaging. How we're set up in Ireland is that we're connected into AdNet Zero Global. We were the first country outside of the UK to join AdNet Zero, but we have within the global community, there's many others looking to join. And we have, IAPI have set this up as part of what IAPI do, but it is an independent and it is crowdfunded initiative that is completely led by the AdNet Zero team. So there is a program manager, Jennifer Ross. She's a wonderful addition to the team, and she is onboarding all of our supporters now. I act as chair of the council, and the council includes, and this is really the important part, this includes representatives from every single organisation within our marketing and advertising community here in Ireland, from IAPI, from the Marketing Institute, from the Advertising Association, from CPI, which is the production organisation, and from IAB. So we've got all aspects. It's truly a one-team approach, and it's really important that within our council we all work together to drive forward initiatives and to share our experiences and how we can influence positive change and how we can reduce our emissions through the activities that we do. So we're calling on all organisations and all companies within these groups, be it a media owner, be it media agencies, be it brand owners, be it advertisers, any space that you're in within the marketing and communications industry, to join this and to really join the collective movement, the collective conversation, and at the same time to benefit from the different steps and the different measurement tools that there are under each one of the actions. Action 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Join these, and we will be having working groups and setting those up across each one of the actions, so that we can together drive forth and really reduce our emissions. And it's all about working in the pre-competitive space. Now, I'm going to hand over to Abby Moran, because Abby's going to talk to you about the agency perspective and how she has led this initiative so far across her business.
Okay, so as Elizabeth has already said, my name is Abby Moran. I'm the CEO of Folk Wunderman Thompson. We're part of the Wunderman Thompson network, who are a WPP agency. And we in the Irish team here, we work with clients such as Vodafone, Bord Gáis Energy, who'll be part of Centrica, Irish Life, on Post, which is our National Postal Service, and Lidl. So wide range of clients within different sectors. I also have a role on the IAPI board. IAPI is the industry body for advertisers, and I am the vice president. I'm also the co-chair of the Sustainability Council. So that's my background and kind of what I'm kind of bringing to this. But certainly for today, it's to give you a point of view from the agency, and more specifically the creative agency, but an agency point of view who's been involved now with Ad Net Zero, been a supporter for say the last 5 months. What some of the challenges have been, what help there has been, and the experience so far. So if you're considering joining, or you're a new opco that are looking at implementing Ad Net Zero into your country, what are some of the things, the considerations that you might think of? So my starting point is always a little bit of Rob Mayhew here. Now, I'm sure you all love him. His TikToks are absolutely hilarious. He really does nail our industry really well. And I think he recently put out a TikTok that basically, pointed out the fact of the hypocrisy of when your agency bans single-use plastics but has BP as a client. And it is that tension point, in that we have really big responsibilities as an agency leader. We are confronted with that sustainability is such a huge entity to kind of tackle, and yet we do have a business to run, but we have to do the right thing. And I think as a leader, when we looked at Ad Net Zero, it was really clear that it broke it down. The old adage that you eat an elephant in small chunks, you break it down, and that's exactly what Ad Net Zero can do for us as agency leaders. Sustainability is so big. It's so all-encompassing. And actually what this does is give you a tool, a framework to use, and actually just then tick it off as you kind of go. What else does Ad Net Zero do? When we were looking at sustainability for the industry, Charlie Stoney, as Elizabeth has said, is the CEO of IAPI, and she is such a progressive leader. She wanted to make sure that we were absolutely looking at sustainability in a really meaningful way within Ireland. So she tasked the Sustainability Council, go ahead and try and find, okay, what's the best approach for this? And we looked everywhere, and we landed on the work that the Ad Net Zero team were doing in the UK. And we thought, actually, rather than start with a blank sheet of paper, there was a lot of credibility in terms of what the team were doing in the UK. And we felt that actually, rather than start again, if we use that framework, if we use it and adapt it to what's relevant for our market, we actually felt that they've done a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So actually, we can take that same framework that Elizabeth has talked us through, but for clients and for suppliers and for people that we're dealing with, the likes of procurement, it does already give us credibility. So if you're considering looking at Ad Net Zero within your market, it is already an established platform. It's something that clients, big brands already know about. They're already on board. So it was really easier for us to take Ad Net Zero and implement it within Ireland, rather than starting again and starting to build those kind of building blocks separately. From an agency perspective, certainly when you read through it, I just felt that going back to the original point, that sustainability is such a huge task and it requires so much focus. It just, from a really easy perspective, sustainability has to be everyone's remit. It can't be just down to one team or one person or one department. And I felt that it was very easy to communicate across the agency all the touch points, all the things that we need to consider. Now, that's not to say that we're done by any stretch of the imagination. We are on a journey. And as we've actually implemented it, we found there's been, considerations and challenges along the way. But equally, we're all working within that framework. And because the way in which Ad Net Zero is established, we can then go back to the team in the UK and our own working groups and actually work through some of those challenges and barriers. So you're there within a team, an organization that really want to make progress. And again, that shared experience has been fantastic over the last few months. But as I said, it's not been without its challenges. One of the fundamental points is when we presented this to all the agencies in Ireland as part of our strategy day for the industry, we we feel that we need to be doing something. We're all very concerned about climate change, but really we have to facilitate them, making the journey. But fundamentally, we need buy-in from many different organizations. So Elizabeth has alluded to the fact that we've set up a council that actually has all the different industry bodies within Ireland. It is a huge task. Ultimately we now have a dedicated resource in Jennifer, which is fantastic. But without that, it's going to be a lot of work. You are going to need to coordinate all the various entities really well. From an agency perspective, I need Elizabeth, I need Jennifer to kind of help me in terms of how am I collecting the data, how am I engaging on the green production. They're the experts in this, and you do really need to have that coordination across the bodies to really make this work. But we are getting there. Certainly I've really enjoyed some of the conversations, certainly with some of the production teams and the CPI who are an industry body for the production industry. Certainly it's really interesting to hear what they've been doing already, what they feel about Ad Green, certainly, how they feel actually we should be evolving in terms of how we view green production. So again, being part of those working groups, when anyone says, benefit of being a part of Ad Net Zero is you get to be on a working group, you kind of go, I have enough in my day job. But actually it's brilliant because you're sharing experiences and you're learning, because you have to tackle this. I go back to my first point in that it is, we are going to have to address these issues. And increasingly, I'm certainly seeing this as part of RFIs. I'm seeing it as part of contract negotiations. It's now forming part of the business terms that clients are looking, from us. So the ambition for change. So Charlie tasked the Sustainability Council come up with an approach that we can, use for the industry. And realistically, change can be seen in two different ways. It can either be incremental change, so you're changing within an existing system, or you can actually change the system. And I think Ad Net Zero does a bit of both and does it really well, in the sense you can make progress, but ultimately you are also looking at more fundamentals within the industry to actually make bigger changes. So if I first talk through some of the incremental changes. So how do we change within the existing system? Elizabeth has already mentioned, you need to start measuring. Now, we had a lofty ambition when we talked to all the agencies back in June. Okay, sign up, and everyone was it was unanimous. Everyone wanted to be part of this. But fundamentally, the timings of our data submission didn't kind of work. So ultimately, we were signing people up, and then, the time that people had to get their data together. But, having gone through the data collection process, let me reassure you, it is quite easy, once you've got together the data that you need. But the reassurance for me is that by going via Ad Net Zero, it almost makes it as a bit of a benchmark, because you can use various different calculators out there, but by using the industry standard, by using the same approach that other agencies in the industry use, fundamentally, that actually there's a benchmark, there's a standard that you're achieving, and there's lots of help there as well. So, certainly we would have submitted our data, and the team within the UK who collate that data and they analyze that data, they would have fed back and they were given lots and lots of help. So again, a real benefit of being part of that collective, being part of that team, ensuring that we're all collecting the same data in the same way. Now, hands up, whilst we're doing a lot of things right, I was delighted with some of the results that we got back. We haven't got our benchmark data back yet, but there's going to be challenges within my business. We work in the most beautiful building. I'm not going to be able to afford to retrofit all of it. So there are still going to be challenges, but what this does, it gives you a starting point, and it enables you to keep measuring. I was talking to a colleague in Wunderman Thompson and their sustainability practice, and she was saying one of the key things that we need to keep on doing is measuring, continually keep measuring and seeing that momentum, seeing that progress. So for me, Ad Net Zero was brilliant, and then it started us on that journey. It created a tool via Green Element that we knew that actually we were measuring in the same way. Second thing that Elizabeth talked about is green productions. Ad Green is about evaluating and curbing emissions on audio, content, film, broadcast, that level of production that all creative agencies and some media agencies now, and some PR agencies and some event agencies now do. So if there's any, production component, certainly Add Green is a really good tool. But one of the conversations that we would have had when we were looking at the working group is that, there was an acknowledgement that actually there was a bit of hypocrisy in that we were focusing on that type of production, but not maybe addressing some of the digital carbon intensity. So again, as a working group, we need to look at the collective of the industry. And again, being part of that conversation is really helpful. For us, doing a green production was really fantastic. We loved it. Absolutely, we've definitely been doing some of the basics for a long, long time. Single-use plastics, making sure that the menu is right, and making sure that we're, sourcing from green energy sources. But actually having a sustainability coordinator almost as a separate department, a new department. Whilst you could argue that, do we really need to be paying for additional resource? It was fantastic to have that level of process and communication across the chute from the very start, across all the departments. And it really made the process incredibly cohesive. One bit of feedback that we've had back, though, is that we do want to kind of close the loop. We've put all the data into the Add Green tool, and now we'd like that verification. Absolutely, we did everything that we were supposed to have done, and we actually curbed the emissions as much as we could. Which kind of brings me on to it's not without its challenges. It is an extra resource. Some of the conversations that we've been having with the production teams, you are looking at additional steps, additional actions, and also there is a lack of infrastructure within Ireland. Certainly in other countries, there would be a far greater infrastructure within the industry in terms of upcycling wardrobe, in terms of EV network, and so on. So Ireland is at the very start of this. And again, going back to that working group, you're then part of the conversation about how we progress the industry as a whole. Going back to my colleague in the sustainability practice in Wunderman Thompson, it's everyone's remit and fundamentally measuring and setting KPIs for your suppliers. So, those that are part of your emissions, your own KPIs, measuring those, but also then feeding that into the marketing team and the overall brand. And certainly when we've been working with brands, that's very important, that we're measuring our emissions because we form part of theirs. So what this does is give a really credible way, an easy way to have a conversation with a client around that. The other incremental change is that it's everyone's remit. It's not one person within an agency. It's not one team. What we're going to be doing towards the end of this year is making sure as many people in the industry, as many people in agencies are actually doing the Add Net Zero Essential Certificate. And that is just amazing in the sense of getting everyone on the same page. And again, you don't need to be an Add Net Zero supporter to do the certificate. However, it is discounted. And again, you're part of that conversation. You're seeing what other tools and other resources and what other educational resources there are out there. So again, being part of the Add Net Zero movement and being a supporter is really important. And just quickly on 2 system changes, because that's all incremental change. We're working within the existing system. 2 things that really Add Net Zero from an agency perspective really helps us is around, okay, how do we change the system? Elizabeth has mentioned change the brief. Now, we've been doing a bit of this work anyway at Folk Wunderman Thompson. We've been looking at, okay, how do we make sure that our clients are reimagining their world in the future? How do they need to change? How do they need to evolve their products and such like? But the change the brief format within Add Net Zero really lends itself to having that conversation because, again, it's part of the agenda, particularly if the brand that you're working with is also a supporter. So, again, it just puts it front and center. It puts the topic on the table. And that also then goes to measurement. We are an industry that absolutely are driven by effectiveness. We are driven by KPIs. We are there in service to actually growing business. But actually, can we use Add Net Zero and the conversation that we're having to change how we measure the effectiveness of a campaign actually at the start of it? So when we're taking on a brief, how are we actually measuring the impact of that? And we're very proud as an agency because since we've been having these conversations, we've been actually been able to reframe what success looks like for some campaigns. But it's all about changing the campaign, the awards as well. Talking to Charlie Stoney even today is looking at how do we make sure that within the awards, within the industry, we're recognising the work that's actually sustainable and it has sustainability criteria baked into the criteria, or better still, like Ad Net Zero have done in the UK, creating awards specifically to this. But I think we just need to be very cognizant that there are certain awards that are awarding Grand Prix where actually it's had an impact, a negative impact on the planet. So just before I hand back to Elizabeth, it's been an enormous task. And I do have to, again, call out Charlie Stoney, who has really driven this whole movement within Ireland. She's been fantastic to work with and really bringing together all these bodies together and putting Elizabeth in position to really coordinate all of that. So I hope that's a helpful agency perspective.
Thank you so much, Abby. Thanks so much for giving us a perspective of somebody who's actually living and breathing Ad Net Zero and bringing it into their daily practices in the agency. Well done. It's fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you're part of the Irish community of advertisers, brands, creative agencies, media owners, producers, etc., please come and join us as an Ad Net Zero supporter. We really do believe that collectively we can make a difference and really drive the emissions of our industry to net zero by 2030, because that is our pledge after all. And also to any other countries or organisations who are looking to join Ad Net Zero, please come on and join and look at adnetzero.com. It's a fantastic resource already in there. You meet some of the most wonderful people who are all doing their bit to drive our whole industry globally to net zero. So let's make this not only just a UK, Ireland and other countries, but let's make this a global initiative. So get on to adnetzero.com and they will be fantastically able to help you.